In our last video, the scientists found lead pollution in Greenland ice, a chemical signature of the Roman Empire. Its external lore, the fingerprint of a civilization, is the record of what they did to the world. The mountains they ground into dust, the air they filled with poison, the silver they minted into power. But the Herculaneum scrolls, they are internal lore. The thoughts of that civilization written in ink and philosophy. Together, they create a stereo image of the past. We see what the Romans did, and we see what they thought, and the two don't always match. Welcome back to Whispered Chronicles, echoes of forgotten lore. The empire was built on slavery, conquest, and environmental destruction. The ice shows us the cost, but the scrolls show us that some Romans knew. They questioned. They philosophized about pleasure, disgust, and meaning, while the world around them burned silver and enslaved nations. To understand the Roman mind, we must go to the place where that mind was frozen in time, not by ice, but by fire. August 24th, 79 AD, mid-afternoon, Mount Vesuvius tears itself apart. The people of Herculaneum watch from their seaside villas. They felt the tremors for days. But this is different. The mountain is birthing something monstrous. The first explosion sends a column of ash 15 miles into the sky. Pompeii, 9 miles south, begins to suffocate under stone rain. But Herculaneum is northwest. The wind carries the ash away from them. They think they're safe. They're wrong. Around midnight, the eruption column collapses. Gravity pulls superheated gas and pulverized rock back down the mountain's flanks. What forms is hell in motion, a pyroclastic surge, not lava, something faster. A wall of gas and particles moving at 400 miles per hour, heated to 700 degrees Fahrenheit. It reaches Herculaneum in 4 minutes. The surge doesn't burn, doesn't have time to burn. It flash cooks everything it touches. It boils the brain inside the skull, vaporizes flesh from bone. And when it hits the villa of the papyri, the private library of Julius Caesar's father-in-law, it does something no one could have predicted. It preserves. The scrolls inside, made of papyrus reeds glued into sheets, should have ignited. Should have become ash. But the heat is so extreme, so sudden, that it carbonizes them instead. The organic fibers don't burn, they transform. The water inside flashes to steam and escapes. Now what's left behind is pure carbon. The scrolls become black, brittle, impossibly fragile. Candy bars of charcoal. The same fire that killed a city created a time capsule. The disaster became the archivist. And for 1700 years, those scrolls waited in darkness. October 1752. A peasant farmer is digging a well in the town of Resina, built unknowingly atop buried Herculaneum. His shovel strikes marble. Beautiful marble. Colored marble. He digs deeper. There are statues down there. Bronze heads. Entire rooms. Word reaches the King of Naples, Charles VII. He sends engineers. They tunnel down through 60 feet of volcanic rock, harder than concrete. What they find stuns them. A villa. Massive. Wealthy. Beyond measure. And in one room, arranged on shelves, are hundreds of cylindrical objects. Black, dense, unrecognizable. At first they think they're logs. It's burned wood from ancient furniture. Then someone notices the texture, the layers. These aren't logs. They're scrolls. Hundreds of them. An entire library, carbonized and waiting. The excitement is electric. This could be lost works of antiquity, dramas by Sophocles, histories by Livy, missing books of the Aeneid, the knowledge of Rome frozen in carbon. But there's a problem. How do you read a scroll you cannot open? The first attempts are catastrophic. They try to unroll them by hand. The scrolls crack, splinter, dissolve into flakes. Imagine trying to unroll a cigar made of ash. Every touch destroys evidence. Every attempt to read erases words. Enter Camillo Paderni, the king's appointed curator. He develops a machine, a wooden frame with silk threads and tiny clamps. It holds the scroll in place, while a blade shaves away the outer layer, millimeter by millimeter. Progress is agonizing. One scroll takes 4 years to open. And when they finally read it, they find philosophy, Greek philosophy, Epicurean texts. Beautiful, certainly. Important, yes. But not Homer, not the lost books everyone dreamed of. The disappointment is palpable. Still, they keep trying. Father Antonio Piaggio refines the machine. More scrolls are opened. Fragments are copied. But many simply disintegrate. Others are damaged beyond recognition. By the early 1800s, enthusiasm wanes. The tunnels are abandoned. The villa is reburied. In 1802, the Prince of San Severo, Raimondo di Sangro, attempts something desperate. He's an alchemist, obsessed with secrets. He develops a chemical solution, mercury-based, meant to soften the carbon. He pours it directly onto several scrolls. They dissolve completely. The chemicals eat through the papyrus like acid. The prince has destroyed more knowledge in an afternoon than centuries of burial ever could. The scrolls that remain are locked away, untouchable, unreadable, ghosts of books, present but absent. For 200 years they sit in the Naples National Library. Researchers photograph them, study their exteriors, dream about their contents, but reading them seems impossible. The library that fire couldn't kill remains silent. March 2023, a group of scientists and computer engineers launched the Vesuvius Challenge. The goal is audacious. Use modern technology to read the Herculaneum scrolls without ever touching them, without unrolling them, without destroying them. The prize is substantial. Over $700,000 for the team that can decode 4 passages of continuous text. The key technology already exists. It's called X-ray phase contrast tomography. And it happens at a place called the Diamond Light Source. Diamond is a synchrotron, a particle accelerator the size of 5 football fields buried beneath the English countryside. Inside its ring, electrons race at near light speed. When those electrons are forced to change direction, they emit X-rays. Brilliant X-rays. 10 billion times brighter than a hospital X-ray machine. These X-rays can see through anything: stone, metal, carbon. In 2019, researchers at Diamond scanned several Herculaneum scrolls. The machine takes thousands of images, slice by slice, layer by layer. Each image captures a cross-section thinner than a human hair. When stacked together, these slices create a 3-dimensional map of the scroll's interior. Now they can see inside without opening, but there's a problem. The ink used in ancient Rome is carbon-based. The papyrus is now carbon. The ink and the page are the same material. There's no contrast. It's like trying to read black text on a black page. The scans show structure. They show layers. But they don't show words. For years, this seems like a dead end. Then someone notices something. In the highest resolution scans, there's a subtle difference, a texture. Where the ink once sat, the papyrus fibers are slightly compressed, slightly denser. The difference is microscopic, invisible to the human eye, but not invisible to artificial intelligence. Enter the machine learning teams. They train neural networks on the scan data. The AI learns to recognize the texture of inked areas versus uninked areas. It's not reading the ink itself. It's reading the ghost of the ink, the shadow it left behind in the papyrus fibers. Reading with light instead of hands. By late 2023, the first letters appear. Faint, fragmentary, but readable. Greek letters, sharp and clear, emerging from 2,000-year-old carbon. In February 2024, the first Vesuvius Challenge prize is awarded. A team led by Youssef Nader, Luc Ferreter, and Julian Schilliger decodes 15 columns of text. Real sentences, real philosophy, the scrolls are speaking. The floodgates open. By 2025, multiple teams are competing. New algorithms are developed. The AI gets better, faster, more accurate. Entire passages emerge, then entire scrolls. The technique is refined further. Researchers realize they can virtually unroll the scrolls. The computer maps every layer, every curve, every fold. Then it digitally flattens them. It's like peeling an onion with mathematics. Layer by layer, the software reconstructs what the scroll would look like if it had been unrolled perfectly. No hands, no blades, no destruction. The impossible has become routine, and the words they're reading change everything. The texts are by Philodemus of Gadara, Greek philosopher and poet who lived in the 1st century BC. He was a contemporary of Cicero, a member of the Epicurean school, and he lived in this villa. This isn't just any library, it's his library. His personal collection, his working notes. The scrolls aren't lost masterpieces by famous authors. They're something rarer. They're the daily thoughts of an intellectual at work. His commentaries, his arguments, his observations about life, pleasure, disgust, and beauty. One recently translated scroll discusses the color purple, porphyras, not just the dye but the concept. Philodemus explores why purple is considered the color of royalty, why it provokes awe. He ties this to Epicurean philosophy, to the nature of perception, to how we assign meaning to sensory experience. Purple, he argues, is a cultural construct. The dye is rare, extracted painfully from sea snails. Thousands of mollusks die for a single ounce of pigment. The color becomes valuable because of suffering, because of labor. We see purple, and we see power because we know its cost. This is philosophy grounded in materiality, in the real. Another scroll addresses diatropa, the concept of disgust. Philodemus asks why certain things repulse us, why we turn away from decay, from rot, from death. For the Epicureans, pleasure is the highest good, but disgust complicates this. It reveals that pleasure isn't just about what we approach, it's also about what we avoid. He argues that disgust is protective. It evolved to keep us from poison, from disease, from contamination, but it also shapes our social structures. What we label disgusting reveals what we value, what we exclude, what we fear. These aren't abstract musings. They're observations about human nature, written by someone watching his society closely. And then there's the scroll on pleasure itself. Philodemus distinguishes between hedon and ataraxia, between active pleasure and peaceful contentment. The Epicureans are often misunderstood. People think they were hedonists, pursuing every indulgence. But that's wrong. Philodemus writes that the best life is one of moderation, simple pleasures, good friends, philosophical conversation, freedom from fear and pain, not excess, not luxury, but calm. He lived in a villa filled with art and wealth, and yet he wrote about the emptiness of material accumulation. The irony is thick. But what makes these texts extraordinary isn't just their content, it's what they represent. These are the internal thoughts of the ancient world, not the public texts, not the histories or epics meant to last forever. These are working drafts, personal notes, the equivalent of a scholar's annotated books. Philodemus wrote about moderation in a villa paid for by exploitation. That contradiction is deeply human. The scrolls also reveal something else. The library wasn't finished. The villa of the papyri was under renovation when Vesuvius erupted. There are statues lying on the floor, waiting to be mounted, mosaics half complete, and the library itself likely continued into rooms that haven't been excavated yet. Ground-penetrating radar suggests there are more chambers, more shelves, potentially thousands more scrolls, still buried. We've read maybe 5% of the collection. The rest is still down there, waiting in the dark, waiting for us to develop better tools. Better AI, better light. The voices we've heard so far are a whisper. The full library might be a chorus. We're living in the age of digital necromancy. We summon the dead with algorithms. We resurrect lost voices with particle accelerators and machine learning. Herculaneum scrolls are just one example. Elsewhere, scientists are reading locked letters from the Renaissance without breaking the seals. They're decoding burnt parchment from medieval monasteries. They're recovering texts from palimpsests. Manuscripts where monks scraped away older writing to reuse the page. The past isn't silent. We were just deaf. But what haunts me about the Herculaneum library is its fragility. These scrolls survived a volcano. They survived 17 centuries underground. They survived looters and treasure hunters and amateur archaeologists with chemical solutions. But they almost didn't survive us. If the Vesuvius challenge had launched 50 years earlier, it would have failed. The technology didn't exist. If it launches 50 years later, climate change and funding cuts might have closed the research facilities. The synchrotron requires massive investment. The AI requires global collaboration. There's a narrow window in history where we have the tools to do this. We're in it now, and every scroll we read is a reminder. Memory is not permanent. Knowledge is not guaranteed. The default state of history is loss. Libraries burn, scrolls crumble, Languages die. The vast majority of human thought has vanished. What we have are fragments. Accidents of preservation. Herculaneum is one of those accidents. A disaster created an archive. And now, 2,000 years later, we're finally listening. Philodemus of Gadara has been waiting a long time to be heard. His words were carbonized mid-sentence. His library was buried while he was still adding to it. He never got to finish, but we're finishing for him. We're reading his notes. We're piecing together his arguments. We're meeting him in the space between the layers. What he has to say matters. Does. The scrolls of Herculaneum remind us that while empires fall and furnaces go cold, the human search for meaning is remarkably resilient. We are reading the private thoughts of a man who lived 2,000 years ago, seeing the world through his eyes, and finding that his questions about pleasure, beauty, and disgust are strikingly similar to our own. Philodemus and his peers were surrounded by the external lore of an empire, the lead, the silver, and the noise. Yet they retreated into these rooms to seek internal lore, to seek a quiet mind. Thank you for watching Whispered Chronicles: Echoes of Forgotten Lore. If these whispers from the ash have intrigued you, I invite you to join our growing circle of observers. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into the forgotten. I'm curious to know, if a disaster froze your life in time today, what internal lore would you want the future to find? What thoughts or words of yours would be worth resurrecting? Share your reflections in the comments below. It is your engagement that keeps these whispers alive. Thank you for walking through the fire with me. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe.